Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel, Metatron here. Arrows versus armor, the powerful longbow versus the shiny breastplate worn by the upper echelons of medieval society, namely the knights and men-at-arms. A marvelous video brought to us by Todd's Workshop, a really high quality channel, top-notch content I often watch, and a very knowledgeable content creator to whom I extend my deepest respect. This is a response video to the original video, so if you haven't watched it, I'll leave a link in the description below, together with a few links to other videos from this channel I particularly liked. The original video is professionally made, very entertaining and exceptionally informative. No vested interest, just plain facts, as it should be. I'm very fond of these tests, when well made, because even if all we could learn was a glimpse of what actually happened on the field of a medieval battle, it would be worth it, because it would expand our understanding of the facts. Fascinating facts. I'm in contact with Todd and he kindly provided a raw footage of the test so that I could use it in the making of this video to draw my own conclusions and perhaps bring up my own points and my own opinions on what the results mean. At the moment I don't have the wherewithal to make these tests myself, though this is very useful, perhaps in the future, but for now, thanks ever so. This is a great experiment because it doesn't just answer the question, can longbow arrows of this time defeat plate armor, but it also raises many new questions that are born from the answers we are harvesting. So in the video, one thing was firmly established. Longbow arrows used at the time of the Battle of Agincourt can't penetrate the sort of plate armor used at the time. The opposite would have surprised me. What actually surprised me, and that's something that wasn't really mentioned on the video, is how easily the first arrow went through riveted mail. What does that lucky shot mean? How do we interpret this data? There is a plethora of points that can be made from that thing alone. First, that's scary. Second, it helps us understand why plate developed in the first place, both in the previous century and in this century specifically. Remember, we are in 1415. Plate will continue to encase the body of these professional warriors until the iconic footplate harnesses of the late 15th century will be engineered. I often said on my videos that in the late Middle Ages mail wasn't considered adequate protection anymore, but to actually see it happen in action, to see the arrow go through the riveted rings, really gave this statement a whole new different meaning. This is the dimension that the physical real world brings in to support and supplement the academic understanding. Plate armor development is a response mechanism ignited by the failure of mail. Through real human experience, people getting shot, having their armor pierced and bleeding to death. Now don't get me wrong, mail was an excellent kind of armor and it had been for a very long time, all the way back to ancient Rome. It worked. The problem was that the development of new, more powerful weapons changed the face of warfare. Armor developed and changed as a response to weapon development in a continuous arms race for supremacy. Even at the times of the Battle of Agincourt, those sections of your armor that were only protected by mail, say the gaps, could still protect you from a sword cut or a handheld spear thrust. But longbow arrows, crossbow quarrels, and let's not forget, cavalry using a lance with the underarm technique reinforced by the newly developed lance rest, these attacks were too powerful for this kind of armor to work. Now, I spent some time reading some of the comments under the original video on Todd's Workshop's channel, and I noticed that a few people asked the question, isn't the purpose of the breastplate defeated by the very early lucky shot, which basically hit the guts, and therefore the guy would have died anyways? Okay, that could make sense in the 14th century, but in the 15th century, and that's the reason why Todd's crew basically decided to ignore the first shot, is because it wouldn't really matter for the Battle of Agincourt. In 1415, we are in the early 15th century, and plate is already encasing the wearer stomach as well, and that's in fact a development which we can clearly understand why they come up with. So in the early 14th century, mid 14th century, you do have breastplates. The breastplate, the medieval breastplate, reaches basically slightly above the navel to what it's called the medieval waist, and the reason is because you needed the plate to finish there, because if it went all the way to the modern day belt of the jeans, then you wouldn't be able to bend because we're talking metal. So the way they went around that problem in the 14th century was to then have your guts basically in your stomach protected by mail. But we can see why eventually they will come up with ways to protect everything with plate, whether it be the ponce of plate, whether it be the separate placket which interacts and you have two plates one sliding inside the other. But as we reach the 15th century and all the way up to the late 15th century, then the entire body of the wearer will be encased in plate, including the stomach. So again, that lucky shot in the 15th century wouldn't have gone through. Now, if you really like talking about knights in shining armor and you're interested in how people actually lived in the Middle Ages, then the channel Modern History TV is a must subscribe to. Jason, the host, I have a grudging admiration for him because he doesn't just talk about this stuff, he does it. He literally does everything he mentioned and everything he talks about. So it's a really, really good channel, super high quality, definitely Metatron approved. So if you haven't, check him out, subscribe and say hello from the community of Noble Ones. The fact arrows literally exploded on impact and the way they violently bounced off armor was also very interesting to see. In a way, it sort of brings back the modern concept of shrapnel into a medieval context, something that I found rather surprising. I had never thought of that. For those who don't know, one of the ways to use the word shrapnel is as a collective term for shot, fragments or debris thrown out by an exploding shell, bomb or landmine. Contemporary soldiers' helmets, and in a way also World War II helmets, so modern soldiers' headgear has the purpose of protecting you from two things, shrapnel and head bumps, but they're not designed to stop, for example, a direct shot by an assault rifle. The caliber of modern day firearms is too high. In the medieval design instead, the medieval helmet did have the purpose of stopping the weapons that you could use, so for example an axe, a mace, a sword. It had the primary purpose of protecting you from the weapons of the time, but I would imagine after seeing this footage that it would also have the purpose of protecting you from, again, this sort of shrapnel effect that we see exploding arrows have, so flying arrowheads and flying pieces of wooden shaft. Now this is interesting because we oftentimes focus on the direct danger on a battlefield, but there is a lot of indirect danger that can still kill you, and I believe medieval people knew it. So we have just witnessed that a knight in full plate armor was pretty much safe from arrow shots, and as the guys said on the original video, we can say that the design of the armor, so the V-shaped stop rib and other things, were there to protect him also, so not only from the direct attacks, but also from ricochet and other things flying around, keeping them away from him. But what about the soldiers near the knight, around him? Were they safe? Or did the archers purposely exploit this whole idea of the pieces of shaft and iron heads flying around as a secondary means of damaging the enemy? What I mean by that is, this could bring a new level, a new depth to the idea of shooting with a longbow and knight in full plate armor. Of course, you try as an archer to hit him in the gaps of the armor, but even if the arrow ends up hitting him in the center of mass, which is highly likely, while the arrow explodes, it could still bring damage to the people around him. Food for thought. Now, when we talk about the Battle of Agincourt and in general medieval battles, I think it is very interesting to try and dive into the actual physicality of a medieval battle and what it meant to be deployed on the field. Now, to prove to you that I actually read comments, Noble Ones, I've noticed that quite a few of you have been very insistent asking me to use French on my videos. So there you go, the next 10 seconds will be in French just for you. La bataille d'Agincourt se souvent considérée comme le début de la suprématie des armes à distance sur la mêlée, où la chevalerie française est mise en déroute par des soldats anglais inférieurs en nombre. Mais au-delà de l'activité physique et militaire proprement dite, les chefs devaient tenir compte des problèmes plus concrets, l'approvisionnement et la santé des troupes. To that add weather conditions, tactical and strategic mistakes made by the overconfident French, the fact that the French did not even deploy the archers that they had. The Battle of Agincourt was an English victory because of a lot of different reasons. So through this video we could now know that that battle wasn't just the English longbow cancelling French armour. And getting into the idea of the French being more numerous than the English, but Dr. Capwell himself explains this very well. So again, check out his lecture on Todd's Workshop channel. So in the video they talk a lot about the armor design and the way certain aspect of the armor and the shape the armor has comes from the experience that these people had on the battlefield. For example, the stop rib, which is there for the specific reason, as we said, to deflect oncoming blows away from your throat, for example. And obviously that's there because most likely someone got a sword tip in the throat, or perhaps something else in the throat, so like we said, a piece of flying arrow. So the question that comes up here now is, well, if they understood that, then why doesn't the plate that covers the throat come or appear early in history? Why do they have to wait until someone gets shot in the throat before they start considering covering that area with plate as well? Let's say that you are a medieval French knight and you've got some of the best armor that technology can provide at the time. So your body is almost entirely covered in plate, but you have chosen to go for a mail aventail to protect your throat. Well, as we said, your center core, so your center of mass, is the area that is most likely going to be hit during the confusion of battle by an enemy arrow. So that's the reasons why you decided to cover that one in plate. Your limbs are covered in plate because perhaps you know that still in hand-to-hand combat you can get hurt, you can get a sword cut in the hand, and that could be debilitating because you don't need to kill a knight to subdue a knight, you don't need to kill an enemy soldier to make sure that he stops fighting, you just need to wound them to the point that they can't fight effectively and they can't operate their weapon anymore. Still, when talking arrows, you know the odds are in your favor because the majority of your body is covered in plate. So there you are, proud and magnificent, sitting on your horse right next to the rest of the knights and men at arms, and you are confident, you feel safe in your armor. But here is a problem to this wonderful story. The problem is named Tom. You see, Tom is a really good longbowman. He's English and he's been practicing the art of the bow for so long that we can say he really is a very accurate muppet. And Tom has got good vision and he has spotted the son of the whatever baron who is sitting right next to you. So he aims, shoots, and hits him in the throat. The longbow arrow penetrates the male aventail and kills him dead. Now you're starting not to feel so safe anymore in your armor. Now to that add the fact that a few thousand English archers could shoot more than 100,000 arrows in about 10 minutes. Still, the odds are in your favor. In fact, the odds haven't changed at all. The fact that you witnessed a lucky, or should we say unlucky shot, depending on the perspective, doesn't change the mathematical odds behind you being hit exactly in the throat, like Mr. Son of the Baron was. And yet, for a medieval knight, seeing something like that happen on the battlefield right next to you must have had a dramatic impact on their perspective. It has a severe psychological effect. Now you don't care about odds anymore. You have seen it happen, you're not taking any chance. So I can imagine this medieval French knight surviving the battle, going back to the armorer and saying, "Mate, you've got to do something about this. Can you not put a plate there?" Okay, so there are many other things to do, so perhaps a part 2 if you liked this video. But for now, I'd like to close it up for today and just thank you for this time. We have covered just 3 points, but there are many other points that could still be brought up, perhaps fuel for a possible collaboration in the near future. Alright, number ones, well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up, and if you're yet not a member of this community, become a number one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. Big thanks to Todd's Workshop, to Modern History TV for all the work that they do. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.